everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be doing a quick recommendation video for one of my favorite tropes. I really got into it a few years ago. I don't read as much as I used to, but it definitely does have some of this aspect in it, and that is bully romances. So a lot of these are set in high school, which I don't tend to read a lot of high school anymore, but I will. I'm not one of those people that shies away from it or anything, because I think these bully kind of romances fit well in that setting where they're forced to see each other every day. They're forced around those people because you're stuck in a high school or stuck in a college kind of situation. So a lot of those may fall into that category, but let me go ahead and dive right in. I have a few of these that I want to recommend. I think like 6 or 7. And we'll just dive right in. So I have the first book. I'm going to be looking off to the side here because I am looking at my notes just so I don't forget anything like names or anything. So the first book that I have is Bully. And that is by Penelope Douglas. They are one of my favorite authors, and I think this was maybe the first or second book that I read of theirs. I think it's the second because I did dive in with Birthday Girl, which I love, of course. So Bully is between Jared and Cate, and they were childhood best friends. They live like right next door to each other, where like he could actually even crawl through the tree and go into her upper, second story window, and they would always visit, and they were extremely close. Well, out of nowhere, I think it was in the beginning of high school. It's been a while since I've read this, but he just all of a sudden hated her, started bullying her, wouldn't talk to her, was mean, like a really mean bully to her. And it was pretty devastating for her. She didn't really understand why he lived to like make her life hell. And so that goes on for a little bit. She decides to go to France for like a year to study abroad. And when she comes back, she's like, I'm done with this. I'm not dealing with his bullying anymore, and I'm going to fight back, and I'm not going to deal with it. So this was really good. I think I reread it a second time. It didn't hold up as much for me, but I still really enjoy this book. I think it's a good bully romance. It's a lot of push and pull. They have a great chemistry and all that kind of stuff. It's very hot. It's all told in her perspective, so you don't know, like, what is the reason? Why did he turn on her? Why does he hate her? Why does he treat her like this? And so you got to find that out later. I think there's another book that's like from his perspective, but I haven't read it yet. So I really recommend this one if you want to try a bully romance. It's a good intro to it. But he is a complete ass, a complete jerk. But for some reason, Penelope Douglas always wins me over, and I bought into this romance. So then I have Vicious by L.J. Shen. I think this is probably my first book that was like full on bully romance. And I'm not like a huge L.J. Shen fan. Like some work, some don't for me. But Vicious, for some reason, I have to reread it to see if it holds up because I haven't read this for a few years, but it's always stuck with me. And this is a bully romance, obviously, between Vicious and I think her name was Amelia. Yeah, Amelia. And he's actually like this rich kid, entitled asshole. And he gets his parents have a ton of money. He gets away with anything. And when they were in high school, she went to the same school as him, even though she was poor because her family were actually like servants. And she lived like on his property in like the servants kind of headquarters. And he hated her. He made her life hell. He tortured her every day. Like, he was just brutal. Like, this guy is a freaking asshole. So, I mean, you're going to want to kill him when you read this book, but I love those kinds of things. And then something happens and she ends up packing up and leaving. And then time jumps to, I think, like 7 years into the future. They're adults now, working adults. And she's really struggling to get by. She has a very sick sister that she has to take care of and make sure she keeps up on her medical stuff. So she's really hurting for money. Of course, Vicious is living at large. and he's doing well. Now, they can't remember how they have a run-in or whatever, but he basically offers her a job, and she comes and works for him, I think as his like assistant or something. Sorry, it's been a while. But then it starts this whole interaction with them, and he offers her a good amount of money for it. So, and she really needs this money to help her sister. So, and I think at one point he like moves her into the same building as him, and all that kind of stuff. So I loved it. Their chemistry was insane. You kind of, things get revealed later in the book and why he is the way he is. And I always just love those kind of like alpha holes in books. And Vicious is one of the top alpha holes. He's a dick, and she's like this beautiful kind of southern sweet girl. So it's a very grumpy sunshine too. So I would definitely recommend this one. And then I have A Burn for Me by Sarah Cate. I love Sarah Cate. This one is a bully romance where it's a younger man, older woman. So she's actually a teacher. She was a journalist, and he's her student. And it's in college, though. And he actually is part of the family of this guy that was like, you know, corrupt and doing bad things. I can't remember what exactly the crime was, but she basically was an investigative journalist at the time and exposed him. And it basically ruined this kid's life because his dad went to prison, and then his mom ended up killing herself. So he has had a really troubled childhood, and he walks in, and that's his teacher. And so this is Colin and Everly, and he makes her life hell. He bullies her, he threatens her. But the thing is that she actually feels really guilty for what happened to him. And so she kind of plays along with it, and they kind of come into this kind of forced sexual situation, and she has to do whatever he wants, even though she could literally go to anybody at any point and report him or fight back or anything. She doesn't. But he is pretty ruthless. You know, he's an angry young man. I think he's like 18 and she's 32. So it's a pretty big age gap if you're interested in that as well. But I really loved this book. And then I have another Penelope Douglas. You could tell they're really good at these bully kind of alpha hole romances. And that is Corrupt. This is the first book in the Devil's Night series. And this is between Michael and Rika. And something happens when she was like in high school. They have like this Devil's Night, and she gets invited out. Like only select people get to go. And she gets invited out to go to this. And a lot of stuff happened on that night. And something bad happens, and Michael's best friends end up getting arrested. He doesn't end up getting arrested for this, but they do, and they have to go to prison for a while. And so then you have a time jump. So it alternates between two different times. So flashbacks in the current timeline, and it's her as an adult. She was actually with Michael's younger brother, but they're not together anymore. She's always had a thing for Michael. But basically, like, Michael wants revenge against her. He blames her for the fact that all his friends had to go to prison, and he goes after her hard. Like, he makes her life hell. There's like an intense situation that happens when things are like coming to a head. I mean, it's crazy. This book is like one of the first darker romances I've read. It probably isn't as dark to me with the stuff that I've read now, loving Sam Mariano and all, but I really did enjoy this book. It's spicy, it's sexy, and there is a steam, like a steam room scene in this that is so hot. Like it's good. So I loved this book. I haven't read the whole series, which is weird. I've kind of put it off because I don't want the series to end. But this is definitely a great romance. It's got some dubious consent in certain spots, and it's really good time. So then I have my favorite dark romance, and The Bully of All Bullies, even though I think this book is there's a lot more nuance and a lot of other things to this book than just a typical bully romance. And that is Sam Mariano's Untouchable. I've talked about this in other videos. I'll probably talk about it again, but this is one of my favorite romances by Sam Mariano. You have Carter Mahoney, and he is the quarterback of the football team. He's a star. His family's got power. He's untouchable. And then you have Zoe Ellis. And she actually spoke out against another football player for kind of groping her, not listening to no, and she kind of reports him. And so he gets kicked off the football team for the senior year, and everybody, it's a football school, everybody's torturing her, bullying her, picking on her because they blame her, even though she did the right thing. And so what ends up happening is that guy that did that and 2 other football players corner her in a classroom. Carter Mahoney is one of those people. Ends up with an altercation where she's like, they're like saying, that guy's trying to grope her up again and kind of intimidate her. And she's kind of fighting back. She's not letting him get away with being an asshole. And Carter's pretty interested and intrigued by her. So he basically gets involved and says, you can either let me face fuck you, or I can fuck you. So she does it. She gives him basically, it's an assault, and it's a forced blowjob that she ends up having to, give it to him. But Carter walks away from this intrigued, obsessed, wants to know more about her, and is willing to do whatever it takes. She ends up calling out sick, or not going to school, not calling out sick, but she doesn't go to school the next day because she's pretty traumatized by this event. And he shows up the next day with soup and woos her mom and basically tells her that they're going to date and he wants to date her. And she's just kind of blown away, like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, you just assaulted me. So this starts a whole long ongoing thing where Carter's going to do whatever it takes to get her. And he's going to do some pretty effed up things. And it's fascinating the way he knows he's like basically a psychopath. He's got psychopathic tendencies. And it's fascinating to see Zoe try to wrap her head around that and how to like work with him or curb his like needs and wants or those kind of tendencies and have them put onto her instead of on somebody else out there. So, and she does find him fascinating. She does get like they fall for each other. So there is a HEA in this. You may not like it, but I loved this book. I found it so fascinating. It's just such a great read. This was, I think, my first Sam Mariano book. And yeah, it was. And then I fell in love after that. Now she's one of my like auto-buy authors, and I love this book. It'll always hold a big space in my head. Like I always think about it. Next, we have a book that I actually kind of want to reread because I want to finally go back to this series, and that's Deviant King by Rina Kent. I read this a long time ago, I think like a few years when I was going through this phase, and I kind of forgot a lot that happened in because it's like a 3-book on the same couple. And I want to go into this so that I can read her newer series because these I think end up being like the parents because it's like a next generation thing. Side note, sorry. So anyways, Deviant King is between Aiden and Elsa. And Elsa is going to a new school. Her parents had passed away. And so her aunt and uncle took her in. And she goes to this new school and runs into Aiden. He sees her. The second he sees her, he threatens her and tells her like she's screwed, like he hates her. And she's like, what the heck? Like, I don't even know you. Why are you treating me like this? So that happens, and he basically bullies her and treats her like crap. He's a very like rich kid kind of thing at this school, and him and his friends kind of run it. And so that happens for a couple years, and then Elsa decides like also in this situation too, where she's like kind of done being treated like this. One of her best friends gets bullied also by his best friend. So she kind of records them and him bullying her because she wants to like report it. And Aiden catches her, and that's when he decides like, okay, well now we're taking this to the next level. And there's some dubious consent, almost assault stuff that he like forces on her, and he becomes like all in on her and obsessed. And he's very possessive and alpha and a total dick. And he like is just a big bully. So this one, I think, has 3 books that follow. I think it is 3 books, if I remember, that follow the same couple. And then it continues with, like, the other friends of theirs. So I definitely recommend if you're interested in starting a darker, like, series. Okay, and my final book is a Sophie Lark book, one of my favorite authors, and that is The Bully. So The Bully, we have is a third book. I think it's the third book in the Kingmaker series. This is one of my favorite books of 2022, a 6-star read. But I do recommend that you start with the Brutal Birthright series. Read Ivan and Snow to get to this one. Now, unfortunately, I know that's a big commitment, but Sophie Lark is one of my favorite authors. So if you haven't read her yet, I would just dive in with the Brutal Birthright series and then get to this, and you will get the full impact of Dean's story arc and redemption arc. So this is between Dean and Cate. Cate was the sister of the heroine in The Rebel, and she actually did a really bad thing that could get her killed. So she would be punished with death and all of that. So she actually is seen by Dean doing this thing, and he's the only one that knows, and he basically tells her, like, you're mine now. You do whatever I want. Next year, I own you. And so when she comes back to Kingmaker, she's dreading it because she knows, like, Dean's going to be there. He's going to make her life hell. And first he starts off with just being a little typical bully, picking on her, making her do stupid things. She like carries his books around, has to be at his beck and call. And then he starts to look at her in a little different way. He starts to see her a little bit sexually, and he decides, you know what, how about a month of this, but with sex? And then after a month, you're free for the rest of the year. I won't do this to you anymore. So Cate, of course, doesn't really have a choice. She's being blackmailed. She's being threatened. She goes with it. They do meet in like this bell tower and have their little one-on-ones. And sex between them is super sexy. Dean is dominant. Dean is sexy. He's alpha. And he's still an asshole. But he's growing in this. And the thing about Dean is there's reasons why he is this fuck up damaged boy. And I mean, his father was so emotionally abusive to him. His father was extremely scarred and damaged for what happened to him, which happened in the Brutal Birthright series. And it's just so sad to see what happened to Dean because of that. So it's just such a beautiful storyline. If you read all of it, you're going to get a lot more. He is a little ass in the beginning of this book, in the first half maybe, but he falls for Cate hard, and he is all in. And his relationship with Snow is really cool in this book. I loved Snow as well. So I can't recommend this book enough. It's one of my favorite Sophie Larks. She's an amazing author, and she kills it every single time. So it's beautiful, and he has one of the best grovels I've seen in a book. I love Dean so much. I actually love Dean the most. I loved him in The Heir, even though he was the villain in it. Like, he literally tries to kill the hero in The Heir, which is his cousin, and I still loved him. So there's something about Dean. He's this morally gray, effed up boy, the character that I just love. Love the Kingmakers, love Sophie Lark. Read this book. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, please give me a purple heart. And as always, please remember to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all, and I will see you on the next one.